Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Blessing in Divorce. Last week, I introduced a new summer series. Never done one of these before, and I'm actually really excited about creating a healing experience for you where every week builds on the last. So I encourage you to go back and check out last week's episode if you're just landing on this one. It's episode number 83, where I lay out this entire series. And today is part 1. And today I want to talk about how our healing begins with our understanding of our own inner pain story. We all have one. We all carry a pain story with us, which is a personal narrative shaped by our experiences around trauma and loss and other hardships that we experience in life. Understanding and acknowledging this pain story is crucial for healing after significant events like divorce, for example, or loss. By exploring the origins of our pain, by understanding the impact that it has on us and how we respond to difficult things that happen in our lives, we can begin to become much more aware and thereby unravel kind of the tie, the bind, or whatever, the cord that's attached to past painful events. This holds us in our past, and we can start releasing our victim story and our pain a little bit and creating a new story. So this process, though, it requires self-awareness and a self-discovery journey, which is so healing in itself. Yes, we have to dip back and understand what's happened in the past and how it plays in. But I want the focus and the awareness to be around the growth that's happening and the opportunities that present themselves through this healing, as opposed to a beating up on yourself about that you didn't see this sooner. That's not the point. And maybe it can bring you some answers around, like, why is this happening to me? Maybe you can find the answer in, I need to learn from this, or I need to grow from this so that I can create a new story. You know, maybe this all happened so that you could create a new story. And I'm not saying you somehow deserve this. It's just sometimes putting things in context and seeing the evolution of how we grow and heal throughout life. Then you really start to see how it all ties together and how there is an upward, trajectory here in how we evolve as we go through our lives, or at least the opportunity for that is there. And I really want to encourage you to embrace that. So this process of self-awareness that I'm encouraging you to go on here, it helps to identify areas of suffering, patterns of suffering that we have acquired through life, recognize the triggers that get us really upset. I'm sure that of course, divorce is a trigger, but it's not the divorce itself. It's the little things that happen. It's the rejection. It's the, feeling unloved. It's the betrayals. Those are the triggers, but why is this so triggering? Like, what is it? Where does this pain come from? And while it comes from the betrayal and the things that might have happened more recently, there's always an underlying pain story there that's causing it to be so much more painful. If you find yourself asking questions like, why am I not able to move forward? Why am I not healing faster? Why can't I just let go of this? If those are the kinds of questions that might be circulating for you a little bit, then I think you're going to find this episode incredibly helpful and illuminating in many ways. So I want to encourage you to be very compassionate with yourself as you listen, very accepting and nurturing, and just open to hearing what is available to you and some of the answers that might be here for you, as opposed to any kind of negative self-reflection like, I can't believe I didn't see this before, or why didn't I do this before, or I'm not able to do that. Like, just open our minds and our hearts a little bit to the possibility that there's some real learning and some real opportunity here for inner growth and healing. That, most importantly, for healing. Okay. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this with you. So get comfortable if that's what you're doing, or if you're walking, just enjoy being out in nature and gaining some real insight on your own inner journey and pain story. Let's do this. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of A Blessing in Divorce. I am so grateful to be allowed into your headset and day today. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm the host of this podcast and the owner and founder of The Separation Club, which is the club you never wanted to be part of, but the best club to be in if you're going through separation and divorce. Here we talk about how to heal, move forward, and find love if you're so inclined. Also, motherhood through divorce, finding yourself, and creating the life you deserve. Our tools are community, sisterhood, honesty, vulnerability, spirituality, and coaching. And that's when we aren't talking to our experts. I'm also a divorced mother of 4 adult sons, remarried, and a stepmom to 3. So we will be talking about everything that goes with all of that here. If you are recently separated, thinking of separating, divorcing, or even beyond your divorce, but still feeling it, then this is the podcast for you. All right, so let's dive into this. In order for us to understand better the pain body and how this works, we actually also need to understand how our ego works. We all have one. There's no one here who doesn't, except maybe some Tibetan monk. And so it's just more of a understanding the role that it gets to play in our lives. The stronger the ego is and the more dominant the ego is in our lives, generally, the less we feel in control of it. Though ironically, the ego's there kind of to help us feel in control by trying to keep us in patterns that we understand and holds us back from evolving forward because the ego is afraid of the unknown. When you feel fear of unknown, when you feel like you have no idea how to step forward to heal, you only know how to do the past, when you can't break the patterns, that is the ego keeping you safe, if you will. And I say that in air quotes, safe in the knowing that we're doing what we know best. It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And that's very much where the ego keeps you. A really terrific book to read to have a better understanding of all of this, and has also partially inspired this episode, is Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. It is a phenomenal book, a truly life-changing book. And in it, he delves deeply into the concept of the ego and explains what it is and its influence on human life. So according to Tolle, and what he says is the ego is essentially a false sense of self. It's constructed through identification with thoughts and emotions and possessions and social roles and other external factors. So in other words, we identify or we determine who we are based on the social role we've been given by society as maybe a mother or a wife or a nurse or a teacher or whatever characteristics we believe or been told come with those roles. And so that's how we then identify. We also identify with emotions and we create a story. So it's kind of an illusionary self-image that we tend to mistake as our true identity. So in order for us to do that, our ego needs to kind of keep us in a place where it can control us, essentially. So I know it can get a little bit confusing when I talk about the ego and the pain story, and I want to make this super simple, but I guess if nothing else, you could think of the ego as this inner sort of other person, this other side of yourself. But one that tends to, if you're not paying attention and if you are not trying to stop it, it is the one that runs the show. It's the one that has you doing the same thing every day. It's the one that, let's say you're trying to lose weight and you are, you have all, like you want to be healthy and you want to eat well. And when you think about it consciously and you make the decision and you set the goals, that is you, that's your heart and soul. Maybe that is, stepping forward towards that. But then when you fail, so to speak, because you still ate the bag of chips or the ice cream or the fried food or whatever it may be, that is your ego holding you in your pattern. It's just the ego saying, like, this is really uncomfortable. We're not eating like we normally do, or I'm feeling hungry. This is uncomfortable. Or maybe you're feeling stressed around the things that, whether or not you'll be successful. And the ego goes, whoa, like this doesn't feel good. We don't like this. We're just going to go back and do what we normally do. And it will strongly put forward that desire to sabotage yourself. That's the work of the ego. So it kind of messes with you. So it's like you messing with you, essentially. But the difference or the distinction is the ego is who you think you are and who you tell yourself you are. But who you really are is just you being you. And we so rarely give access to that part of you, right? We so rarely show up as just who we are. We tend to prioritize showing up as who we think we're supposed to be. That's the fundamental difference. So when we think about the characteristics of the ego, or the manifestation of the ego identifies with these physical forms and these roles, and it identifies with what we have, and our sense of worth that's attached to those things, like how people see us, or our title, or the size of our house, or the kind of car we drive. Those are the kind of things that our ego really identifies with and holds on to maintain its existence. This kind of identification with other things, and that our value is somehow held in the things that we have, can really create a lot of anxiety and fear. Because if we lose those things, then who are we? Then we lose ourselves and we lose our identity, right? So become aware of the roles, the beliefs that you hold on to because you think it's who you are. So for example, one of those roles is being a wife, or a husband, or a partner, or whatever way you identify in that romantic sort of marriage relationship. When we look at that role, or role as a mother, role as someone in the church, or something like that, we get so attached to it that that's who we are. If we become divorced, then who are we? I know I went through that. I remember sitting there going, like, who am I? I've only ever identified for the last 20 years as a wife and a mother. I've never thought of myself as anything else. So if I'm no longer a wife, and my role as a mother is going to change, who am I? So that's the first place that the ego kind of messes with you when you're trying to work through this pain story. So we create these pain stories around it. I'm losing everything. I'm losing who I am. I am losing so much. I'm not valued for who I am. So this is where the pain story develops. So if you recognize or resonate with any of the things that I've just said, and if you happen to be at home or near pen and paper, or if you're not, do it later, but write down the things that you identified with, or still identify with, as your value, as your place or role in society, and who you are. The thing that I want you to notice or pay attention to is that none of these things is who you are. Those things are who you choose to be in society. So yes, you're a mother, okay? But that's a role. That's a role we play. It's an important role, right? But what's even deeper and more important than that? It's who you are. So who we are, who is our very being. If we think into our heart and soul of our being, who's that? It's just pure love. We are. You exist. You breathe. You are loving. You are expansive. You are connected. You are aware. These are the things that we are. So if we can actually let go of the roles and get into who we are, like as in our being, then I think you'll find so much more ease in your healing, because those things, the love in your heart, the awareness of yourself, your awareness of other people and your love for them, none of that has been taken from you. None of that is gone. In fact, this might be your opportunity to get in touch with that and become aware of who you really are, to become conscious. I'm sure you've heard, about spirituality and raising the collective consciousness. That's what that's about. It's tuning into our being and getting away from having and owning and hierarchies and structures and rules. It's kind of like, what if we all could just choose from a place of loving kindness, compassion, and awareness and consciousness of each other and everybody else's loving kindness and compassion? It would be a very different world. And this is obviously a work in progress. But what's important right now is for you to become aware of your inner being and who she is, so that you can start realizing that you are still everything you've ever been. And in fact, by your increased awareness, you've actually expanded it, because you're aware of it now, whereas you might not have been before. So definitely notice how you're identifying to the outside world, the roles or the status or the position or the title or the whatever, the identity that you feel you're losing. And then also become aware of, like, wait a second, but I am still a loving human being as a mother. And that hasn't changed. And just because I am no longer have my partner in life does not mean that I am anything less, or that I am any less loving or kind or compassionate, or any less alive, or any less expansive, or any less able to become more expansive, for example. Right? Do you hear that? Okay, let's move on. Another part of the ego, which is so prevalent in today's society, and I really know that this is something that my ego hangs on to in a big way, and that's my need for validation. We all have that. And I see it in my Facebook group all the time. Everybody's like, tell me if I'm crazy, but like, my ex did this, and then, he's telling me that I'm the crazy one, or that I'm at fault, or I did something wrong. And people just want validation. People want to be told this isn't your fault. And as we go through our pain, as we feel this intense pain in our body and our heart, and we feel betrayed and abandoned and rejected and sad, grieving, like, those feelings are real. Those are really painful, difficult feelings to hold on to. We want someone to tell us that, of course you feel that way. Of course, it's you're right. They were wrong. They've hurt you. Of course, you're in pain. Our ego is validating our pain story. In fact, our ego is identifying with it. This is where the victim mentality comes from. We are holding on to that pain story. We are repeating it and telling everybody about it. We're sharing all kinds of details about the pain story. When we're lying alone in bed at night, our ego makes sure you're reminded. It just floods you with thoughts about the pain story. Don't you dare let go of it. It's who you are. You are now a victim of divorce. You're a victim of a betrayal. You're a victim of abuse. Hold on to that pain story. The only way you can hold on to it is by constantly reminding yourself and others so they can validate that you should be in pain. But what if we were to let go of our pain story? What if we were to say, I see my pain. I see where it comes from. I see my ego's need to keep my story alive. Because if I stop validating my story, and if I stop identifying with my story, then I would start to feel better. I would start to heal. And you know where the ego quickly shows up right there? Because now you're getting into your being. I'm a healing person. I'm able to get past this. And the ego goes, whoa, no. We'll lose our whole identities, which comes through this pain story. And it will remind you again of your pain. It'll just somehow make you aware of something or bring up some trigger to help you stay in the pain story, because that's the identity. Because we feel so bound to our identities. It's how we've been raised. It's how society is structured. It's really hard for us to let go of it. And I know that a lot of you, I felt this as well, we feel that if we let go of our pain, if we start to heal and feel better, if we stop telling the story, does that mean that we're okay with what they did to us? Does that mean that it's somehow they've been forgiven or let off the hook or excused somehow? That's how our ego reminds us. It goes, whoa, but wait a second. Then that makes it okay. And we're like, no, it's not okay. And we get angry again, or we get sad again. It's like, well, there we are, right back in our pain story, triggered, sad, angry, whatever. See how quickly that happens? How quickly we jump from back and forth to those two things? But ultimately, let's remember how we want to feel. You want to feel happy. You want to feel good. You want to, go through life with a smile again. I know you want that. You have to let go of your pain story to be able to do that. You have to see it, become aware of it, learn from it, and then let go of it. The ego essentially operates through unconscious patterning. Patterns like habits, belief patterns, and these are generally rooted in the past, like old conditioning from our parents, conditioned by their parents. Like, it can be really old. It's also conditioned by experiences. So as we go through life, we acquire beliefs and thought patterns and kind of, in a way, systems of dealing with life based on old conditioning, either created or put in us basically through just general conversation with our parents, or also like just through our own life experiences. So how do we transcend that? How do we, move past that? How do we identify that this is happening? We can notice some of the ways that the ego will keep us in these old patterns is through things. I've mentioned a couple already, but some other ones that we need to be aware of as well is our ego's willingness or desire even to go towards things like separation and conflict. Very much a like me versus them kind of mentality, that everybody's against me. And have you ever felt that way? I certainly have. Like, there are times when, when I think about when I went through my divorce and my ex was saying all these horrible things about me, and then his family was believing him and saying horrible things about me. And it very much felt like how could they all turn on me? It's like them versus me. And I mean, of course, their egos were keeping them in that place as well. So all our egos were just busy, keeping us in this place of division and separation, and like in a way that creates also this reactiveness, this sort of like, oh my God, like I can't believe you said that, or if you're thinking like this, well then I can't be around you, or if you believe that, then we can't be friends, or if you're going to say that, like this constant sort of ultimatums and this incredible conflict and division. The ego thrives on that. Like, it's like, okay, now we're going to fight for ourselves and our identity and our rights and our boundaries and our whatever. It's such a powerful force inside us to kind of stand up for this identity that we have created, where we have placed all our value. We think all our value as a human being. The only value we have here is in this identity with like being right and being better and being more important and being whatever, like whatever you think that you are, it's created by your ego. But what if we are able to transcend that, and we're able to, instead of focusing on what sets us apart, I can't go along with that. I can't think like you. You're wrong. I'm right. If you don't agree with me, we can't be friends. We can't be married. We can't be whatever. What if we're able to go to a place of, you are you and I'm me, and I'm okay with who I am, and I accept that we're all a little bit different and we all believe in slightly different things, but we all come from a place of love, and I'm a loving human being, and I understand, and I have compassion, and I'm kind, and I don't need to fight with you about this. I don't need to agree, but I don't need to fight with you about it. I know who I am. It's not I don't need to force it out there on you and convince you that I'm better, right, or whatever, in order for me to feel at peace with myself, in order for me to feel right with myself. That's where the fundamental difference is. That's where the conflict is versus the healing. In order to heal in a situation like divorce, which is so conflicting, there's such a battle of the wills, really. Like, it's just, this person, you did this, well, you did this, and then I did this, and you did this, and you're wrong, and I'm right. And, there's so much fighting around it. And then we get involved in fighting over our kids, and we fight over money. And why do we fight over money? Because, well, I need it to live, and I deserve it, and you wronged me. And like, again, we are so fearful of what will happen if we don't get our share, if we don't get to hold on to this identity that we have become so attached to through our egos. What if we were able to just be okay with being? And no, I'm not going down some romantic path of we don't need any money, and like, Elizabeth, we got to work, we got to feed our kids, we got to have a house, and we got, whatever. I get that. We have to take care of ourselves. We are in the society where these things matter. But we don't have to make every part of our life about that. There is space for you to allow yourself to heal by letting go of having to be right, letting go of the whole world telling you that you're right and that you're better. if you can let go of having to share how wrong someone has been and how much they've wronged you just to hear that you're right, and then maybe both of you would be able to let go of a little bit of the fighting, a little bit of the conflict, or a lot of it. And maybe this process, this journey of uncoupling, this journey of ending this union can be a little bit more peaceful and a little bit more amicable. There are people who are able to do that. I wasn't in one of those situations myself. And, I look back and I can certainly see his ego because of his narcissism. The ego is very strong there. But I see it in myself. I see my need to be right and be heard and validated and all of those things. And none of them help. None of us get to walk away from something, a high conflict divorce or a really toxic split or anything like that, and say we have no role. It does take two. I'm quite firm in my belief that a lot of it was driven by him. I will admit that. But what I've also gotten to is it doesn't matter anymore. It's like, okay, so it was. That's the journey that he needed to be on because he is not able to transcend his ego and this need to be right and validated. He wasn't able to do that. I was able to do that to a certain degree, to a much larger degree than him. And I choose to be proud of myself for that and to let go of the rest. It's not important to me that he changes his story. His narrative around why we got divorced and who I am as a human being is quite disgusting, actually. It's quite awful. But I don't really care. It's not important to me. I know I'm not that person. I know who I am. I know my very being. The fact that he has chosen to tell a different story, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. And that's the win. That's the little flip that puts you in a place of peace and healing as opposed to in constant sadness, anger, conflict, needing to validate. That's the difference between living through your ego, who's fearful and insecure, and living through your loving heart. And I choose to live through my loving heart. Let's talk a bit about how to transcend this ego, how to heal, and how to let go of living through this insecure and, this insecure ego. Essentially, that's what the ego is insecure and afraid of disappearing. So it hangs on to these structures or these identities and roles that it has created to, identify who we are. So I've already talked a bit about the importance of awareness, of realizing what you're doing, of seeing the pain story and almost seeing it as like a separate part of yourself. Think of the pain story like, okay, what if you could like extract it? Like it was like a ball inside you and you pulled it out and put it beside you for a minute, like just put it down beside you. And it's like, okay, there it is. I'm aware of that. It's here. And I'm becoming aware of how this pain story came to be and the belief patterns and the systems inside me and the identities that I've created for myself throughout my lifetime that support the pain story. My need to be validated, my need to feel this, to be seen as this. Those are all the constructs around your ego. But what if we see that and we go, okay, but now that I've pulled out my pain story and put it beside me, what's left? Well, I'm still a loving human being. I'm still compassionate. I still love to mother my children. I'm still here. I am who I am, even with the pain story sitting outside me. Now we can make choices based on who we are and what is right for us in our loving heart. Now by becoming aware of your ego, your pain story and its presence and the patterns attached to it, you can actually choose to let go of them. It's not about judging. It's not about saying mean and nasty things to yourself, like, how could you do that? It's about, how do I explain this? It's about seeing it and compassionately looking at it and saying to yourself, that's who I needed to be to get to this point. That's who I had to be or chose to be. That's who I was. But now I'm sitting here in this moment of crisis, maybe an identity crisis. I'm going through a divorce or something very difficult in my life. And I'm choosing to not be that pain story. I'm choosing not to be the person who has to be validated because I know that I'm worthy. I know I'm loving. I know who I am. And I am that without the pain story. This is how we start to honestly make like giant leaps forward in our healing. In order to subdue or quiet the ego, which is going to try to pull you back into the pain story because it has to for its very survival and existence, it's going to be trying to get you to react and throw triggers and things like that in front of you. So you jump back into your pain story because you know very well how to be there. So we need to learn to become non-reactive. And it's not about living in unemotional or, never reacting to anything or there's something wrong when you become triggered, but it's being able to see, oh, there's that trigger that's attached to my old pain story. I see it now and I'm choosing to let go of it. I feel that emotion rise in me. It's familiar. I've been here many times before. This feels hard. And then you just, again, it's about reminding yourself and being aware and present. Right now, I am safe. Right now, I am loved. Right now, I am an intelligent and valued human being, like whatever. Like just start with your affirmations. That's awareness, that's presence, and that's choosing to not react and jump back into an old pattern. This is crucial healing, self-discovery work. And I did it. And I can tell you, it was one of the most, I'm not even going to say difficult because it might have felt difficult at the time, but it was such a joyful journey. It was so healing that I don't want to call it difficult because I don't think that's the right word. I'm not sure that I have the right word available to me right now to describe the journey, but it was deep, it was meaningful, it was healing, it was eye-opening, it was illuminating. It was all of those things. I learned so much about myself and I saw how I had chosen to survive in a marriage that was very unequal in commitment and in many ways. And I saw what I had done so that I could, maintain my ego, first of all, but also just so that I could feel good. And I could now choose to not be, I wasn't with this person anymore. So now I could choose to not be the survivor anymore. I could choose to be someone completely different, or rather to be me and just me, the person who thrives and feels joyful and loving and excited about life and creating a beautiful life that works for me, right? And I did that. That's why I'm talking to you today. I would not be talking to you today if I had not created this life for myself. I would not be heading to Italy in a couple of weeks to run a retreat for women who want to go on this journey with me. We're not going to sit there and cry about the past. I can tell you that the pain stories are not welcome at that retreat. We're going to be talking about who we are. We're going to be talking about stepping forward into our light and into our very being. That's the work we do there. That's the work. And it's so exciting and so much fun. And it's just, I invite you to join me. So continue on this series here with me because we're going to be doing this work together. We're going to be stepping into our healing. And so for now, I want you to grab your joy journal. And if you don't have it, there's a link to order it in the show notes. But I want you to grab your joy journal and start writing a little bit about your pain story. Not too much, but a little bit so you can let go of it. See it. Put it down, look at it. Pay attention to how it's been running your life so far. To what degree did it get to tell your story? There's so much learning and value there, and compassion and love for yourself. And then you can kind of go, okay, I don't need to take you with me anymore. You're a heavy burden. I don't need to take you with me. I can start a new story, a much more joyful and happy and authentic story. So that is the journey we're on, ladies. And thank you for being here and for listening today. I am so proud of you for really sticking with me here. And if you have any questions about this, by the way, honestly, one of my favorite topics. So I'm happy to get into it with you. Even jump on social media and ask some questions about it, or underneath, if you watch this on YouTube, there's obviously a place there to ask questions. I really want to hear from you. I'd love to hear your aha moments or light bulb moments that you might have had during this episode, because I'm pretty sure you would have had some pretty illuminating content here. So I'm really just so honored to bring this to you, and thank you for listening. I'm grateful for you. You're absolutely awesome. And make sure to tune in next week as I will be talking more about turning our focus inward towards our healing and the tools that can help you do that. So until next time, have a most beautiful day.